One, win, lose. Did the debate matter for Kamala Harris? Did it matter for Donald Trump? Two, the American Leviathan. What are the origins of the deep state? J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, Woodrow Wilson and the expansion of federal power, or Europhiles in the 1870s? We break it down with the author of a brand new book, American Leviathan, Ned Ryun. Three, what's a bigger brand? Wyoming or Fresno State? What's a bigger brand? Hawaii or San Diego State? UNLV? What's the biggest brands that, now that they're on the hunt, should be added to the Pac-12? Plus, somebody's got you. Who's your daddy? Which celebrity owns the influence over your mind? It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, terrestrial radio market to market, and always on demand by simply subscribing at Apple or Spotify. You can also subscribe and watch the Will Cain Show every Monday through Thursday, 12 o'clock Eastern time on Facebook or on YouTube. Just head over to YouTube and subscribe to the Will Cain Show. You can get past episodes like our breakdown pre-debate where former House Speaker Newt Gingrich declared that Donald Trump was the best debater of all time. Or yesterday's episode with former Congressman Sean Duffy, where we fact-checked ABC and played the role of Donald Trump, what I would have said in response to many of those questions from David Muir. The militia, the boys in New York, had an interesting little text right before the show. Tinfoil Pat said, Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris. That's one of the bigger names, maybe the biggest name in American culture, outside of the world of politics, whose endorsement means something. Who is the celebrity that owns your mind? Let's bring in the guys in the militia for just one moment. Tinfoil Pat thinks there's got to be somebody for each and every one of us, that there is a celebrity that has outsized influence over your opinions. And I got to thinking about this before we went to the air, and we can break this down a little bit later in the influence of Taylor Swift on this election. But I'm trying to be real. I don't think I have one. I mean, who would tell me, hey, I really think it would be wise? What celebrity? There might be people in my life who I have big respect for, but what celebrity that I don't know, or even that I've met maybe, could say, hey, Will, you really should give a second look to Kamala Harris? And that would be influential.
I don't think I have anybody. I don't hold celebrities in high as regard as people do, like a Taylor Swift. Like, I love what they do, but I don't think I would let anyone influence a political decision over me.
It's an easy thing for everybody to say, and I'm sure that everybody jumping into the comment sections on YouTube or Facebook will say something similar to what you've said to it, what I'm saying. But I do think that, like, Tinfoil's little prompt, be honest, we all have somebody, is interesting, just because I always like looking in the mirror and try to establishing a little bit of self-awareness. Is there somebody?
Jerry Jones?
Is there, especially you're 24 or 5, young James. I honestly think either one of two things has happened. I, and by extension, two-a-days have gotten older. And quite honestly, popular culture isn't as meaningful as it used to be. I think that's fair, even when you're in your 30s, two-a-days. There's a window in your life where celebrities mean more for whatever reason. There are points of commonality. You know, you get with your buddies, you talk about it. And if we're being real, we all want to sneer at Taylor Swift and 24-year-old girls. But look, we're all guys that talk about sports. And the reason that we give outsized influence to sports is because it's a point of commonality for us. So the reason we don't care is either because I've gotten old, two-a-days has gotten older, or it's because it legitimately has lost power. Celebrity culture has lost the power it had in the late 90s and early 2000s. But you think you have a name, young James?
Thomas Edward Brady.
Tom Brady. Wow.
Tom Brady tells you, Tom Brady says, against all odds, hey, I think, James, you should give a second look to Kamala Harris. And you take a step back and go, what am I missing?
I'd hear him out.
He see?
Really?
I'd hear him out.
If he endorsed Kamala?
I'd hear him out.
Interesting.
I don't think I'd ever vote
It's
that
forgivable.
way, but I'd hear him out.
Huh.
It's forgivable. I don't know. It's understandable. You're a New England Patriot fan. He's been
Ugh.
the father of half a dozen wonderful memories for you throughout your young life to some extent. It's not forgivable. It is understandable. But let's break down today, not just a little bit later in the show, who is that person in your life, that celebrity that has outsized influence. But let's get into the origins. I think this is fascinating, of the American deep state. You know, my gut tells me J. Edgar Hoover, 1930s, FBI. But the author of a brand new book, American Leviathan, Ned Ryun, is going to join us and says it actually predates that. It's much earlier in the formation of America. That's coming up in a little bit here on the Will Cain Show. But story number one. Does the debate even matter? Yesterday, we broke down the debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It's my humble opinion that it was a missed opportunity for Donald Trump and that it amounted to a win for Kamala Harris. But is it a win that actually effectuates any change in the race for president? Immediately after the debate, we started to see headlines from places like CNN. And there was an interesting tone to the headline. For example, they wrote, Harris still faces a tight race despite a strong performance. It acknowledged in their estimation, their subjective judgment, that Kamala Harris had won the debate, but they didn't declare that as a significant event in determining the outcome of the presidential election. And the reason that I think it's notable coming from CNN is that I think Christopher Hitchens, a famous thinker, writer, once said, if Christopher Hitchens wakes up every day and says, you know, I don't believe in God, it's not news. But if the Pope wakes up one day and says, I'm not so sure about this God thing, it's screaming headlines. It's about the source. If Fox, and let's be real in all self-awareness, if Will Cain says, hey, we have the debate results, Kamala Harris won, but it doesn't matter, then it comes off as though it's wishful thinking and maybe even spin. But if CNN is laying the groundwork for a disappointment when it comes to the outcome, it makes you wonder, why? A sudden adherence or devotion to the truth, or preparation for too high of expectations? You see, what we've learned is, it's interesting, I don't know that there's any singular event that matters that much. A lot like we've lost the power of celebrity culture over the past 30 years, we've probably lost the impact of any singular event because we're inundated with events. I mean, it was only now 2 months ago that Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt. A bullet through the ear at the stage of a rally. That's the kind of news event, if we're being real, 20 years ago, that would have driven months of news. And yet now, and this is not about should or should not, but is or is, it's a tree falling in the forest. After that assassination attempt, I remember thinking, feeling, and saying, it's over. Of course, that was with a different opponent, Joe Biden, but it's over. It's a win for Donald Trump. And now it's distant in the rearview mirror, as will be this debate and the determination of this debate. Still, there has been some movement. It is not significant, but there has been some movement in the race for president. First, let's start with the poly market betting market. Going into the debate, these are the betting odds from bookmakers who will bet on the outcome of the race. Going into the debate, Donald Trump had roughly a 53% odd of winning the election. Kamala Harris, 46% odds. Since the debate, that has flipped. Kamala Harris now stands at 50%, Donald Trump at 49%. Now, that's a short-term change in the odds as a direct result of the performance in the debate. But if you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, you can see that the betting market shifts over the time. It's not so much a weather forecast as much as it is a thermometer of the temperature in the room. It doesn't tell you what's going to happen in November. It tells you where we are today. If you want to narrow in on when these betting markets shifted, you can take a look in here at Betfair Exchange. This is the betting markets through the course of the debate. This is, again, according to Betfair Market. But at the start of the debate, Donald Trump was just under a 52% chance of winning the election, 46.3% for Kamala Harris. And then the debate starts. And almost immediately, as you have a time clock here from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m., almost immediately, 20 minutes into the debate, you see a dramatic drop in the betting prediction for Donald Trump and a dramatic spike in the betting prediction for Kamala Harris. By the end of the debate at 11:10 p.m., betting markets peaked for Kamala Harris at 51.3% and dropped to 47.2% for Donald Trump. That's the short-term impact of the debate on the race for president. Fox News power polls are out. They show the effect of the debate on the election. These were published today by Fox News. And the important point to focus in on this map, again, if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, if you're listening on podcast or on radio, I will explain. Red, solid Republican. Blue, solid Democrat. Yellow, toss-up. In the wake of this debate, states like Wisconsin, expected to be a toss-up, remain yellow. But importantly, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada all moved yellow, all to toss-up. And going into this debate, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina were lean Republican. Pennsylvania being, at that point, the only real toss-up. It seems to suggest that the debate had a real impact where it matters on battleground states. Now, of course, in this debate, we saw a tilted playing field. We saw an away game for Donald Trump. We saw unfair moderating. We saw fact checks one way, 4, 5, 6 for Donald Trump, 0 for Kamala Harris. One of the things that was fact checked is when Donald Trump said, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. Now, we said going into the debate, I argued with some of my producers, Tinfoil Pat, this was a mistake if he brings this up, because it's not about, again, whether or not he should or shouldn't, or whether or not it's true or false, but what is, and what is that it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy. And she gets to be apoplectic. Talk about extreme, and gave us the one place, I think, in the debate where she cackled, where she laughed. But let's move beyond what is, and let's talk for a moment about what should be. What should be is, was it true? And the mainstream media has dismissed this story as, in fact, crazy. Real time in the debate, David Muir said to Donald Trump, we have called the city manager of Springfield, Ohio, about whether or not Haitian migrants are eating ducks, geese, and cats. He said there have been no known reports. Well, here would be my question again for David Muir. When did journalism become simply stenography for politicians? When did that become the source of a fact check? Stenography, like a court reporter, regurgitating the word of a politician. That is what we're looking at with the city manager in Springfield, Ohio. The same politician, same type of politician in Aurora, Colorado, denied the existence of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang taking over apartment complexes in that city. Of course, it's true. Tren de Aragua has taken over as property managers collecting rent in Aurora, Colorado. Now, it's interesting what's happened to journalism. Here's what I would say. Testimony on the ground, somebody saying, I heard, is not very valuable. Neither necessarily, I would actually submit this, it is less valuable, one singular testimony, than a city manager saying we have no reports. Okay, but neither are dispositive. Okay, I hate that word, and I apologize for using it, but it means it doesn't prove the case. It doesn't give you the ability to fact check, right? one person, even on video where we've seen a video of police officers approaching a woman kneeling over a cat and somebody off camera going, she's eating the cat. It still isn't proof because we don't see her eating the cat. We don't know whether or not that person standing off camera is trustworthy. We don't see it in the act. But we also don't give credit to the city manager saying it's false, it's fake, it's a hoax, it's viral. And the source of a fact check. What a real journalist would do is, well, you'd go to the police department. You'd file a Freedom of Information request about that police body cam video. You'd interview that officer. You'd hit the streets of Springfield, Ohio, and see if there's more than one person testifying. You would judge, are any of these single individuals credible? And in the end, in determining whether or not that story is true or false, a responsible position would be, why is this being brought up? Is it just salacious? Is it racist, as contended to by CNN, to villainize black migrants? Or is it symbolic of a culture that has been commandeered? 50,000 people being inundated with 20,000 migrants, regardless of where they come from, if they do not share a common culture. And if you want some evidence that that larger issue, that important issue might be the case, I give you, the governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine, has deployed resources and law enforcement to Springfield, Ohio to deal with the problems. He did not say pets being abducted and eaten, 100 of them in a van. But he did say the strain on that community caused by 20,000 migrants. This is not just, the cats and pets are symbolic of a larger conversation about what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. And Springfield, Ohio is a larger conversation about what's happening in America with unfettered refugee, asylum, and migrant claims, and also illegal immigration. And that is journalism, not the momentary fact check of your call to a city manager with all the resources of ABC. The point of me talking about that is to set the record straight and also say, no matter what happened on Tuesday night, well, more's about to happen in September and October. And the long-term end result of that debate is that it won't mean much on the race for the president. What are the origins of the American Leviathan? A conversation with Ned Ryun coming up here on The Will Cain Show. The Tunnel Tower's countless veterans' villages stand as a beacon of hope for those who've sacrificed everything. These facilities are committed to helping veterans achieve stability and independence by providing housing and services based on individual needs. Within the village, residents will find support and community among those who truly understand the meaning of service. With several veteran villages either completed or in development nationwide, the foundation and supporters believe in the power of unity and that no veteran should be left behind. Through its Homeless Veterans Program, Veterans Villages, and National Case Management Network, the Tunnel Towers Foundation has provided housing and supportive services to over 8,000 veterans since the program's inception. So join Tunnel Towers in its goal to eradicate veteran homelessness and support those who've given everything to our country by donating $11 a month to T2T.org. 95 cents of every dollar that's donated goes directly to helping America's heroes. That's T2T.org. Donate now. The Deep State, its origins, next on The Will Cain Show.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
Jalen Milroe and fourth-ranked Alabama take on Wisconsin.
Watch out!
The best pregame, the best announcers, the biggest games. Big noon Saturday, noon Eastern on Fox.
We're bringing the thunder to football. Fox Weather is storming the field with the risk of weather impact on the hottest NFL games this season. Listen to Storming the Field every Friday on foxnewspodcasts.com.
Well, they say there are certain things that shouldn't be brought up at the kitchen table, but not here at the Duffys. So pull up a chair and join me, Rachel Campos Duffy.
And me, former U.S. Congressman Sean Duffy, as we share our perspective on the discussions happening at kitchen tables across America.
And we're going to share some real-life solutions as well to the everyday issues that you all talk about. And we're going to talk about some of those things that we agree on.
And some that we don't.
Download from the kitchen table, the Duffys at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Pac-12's on the hunt, and they're inviting brands into the conference. Did they invite the right ones? Plus, is there any celebrity? Be real. Any celebrity that retains influence over the way that you think? That's all coming up in a little bit here on the Will Cain Show. We're streaming live on the Fox News Facebook page, the Fox News YouTube page, as we do every day, Monday through Thursday. You can jump into the comments section, participate, become a member of the Willisha. Subscribe on YouTube. And if you want to listen to us and you're listening on radio, but you want to catch us after the fact or it doesn't match up with your commute that day, just head on over to Spotify or Apple and subscribe to The Will Cain Show. Ned Ryun is the author of a brand new book entitled American Leviathan. He has been on our show in the past. We've talked a lot about the deep state, the administrative state, how it can be dismantled. But now Ned has really gone in and he has understood, which I think, Ned, is not only a curiosity that's fascinating that I want to understand from you today, but I think it's necessary. Yes. If you are going to dismantle something, you have to understand how it was built. And you're talking about the origins of the Leviathan.
Correct. No, great to be with you, Will. It's been something I've thought about, talked about, researched for a long time, which has obviously resulted in this book, American Leviathan, Birth of the Administrative State and Progressive Authoritarianism. But really discussing the origins of it. I think you're right. The American people need to understand what's taking place in D.C. today. That over the last 110 years, roughly, there was something that was begun in this country that had absolutely nothing to do with the Constitution. I would argue is, quite frankly, very un-American, with the rise of the progressive movement in the early 1900s. And I would say a pivotal moment in our history was the 1912 presidential election, in which Woodrow Wilson won, but it was generally accepted that the progressive ideals for what government should look like in the future was accepted by most of the American populace. And what the progressive statists wanted to do was, well, let's just be very honest. They wanted to annihilate the moral and political legitimacy of the U.S. Constitution. They wanted to do away with our constitutional republic. They deeply resented, Will, the separation of powers, which is a fundamental part of the machinery of our Constitution, and I think the greatest defender of our natural inherent rights that God gave to us. People want to talk about the Bill of Rights, and I want to get to that at some point. But there was a great debate at the Constitutional Convention between Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and George Mason. What's the greatest protector of our natural inherent rights? Well, it's the machinery of the republic. What do I mean by that? I mean the diffusion of power, the separation of powers. Because if you have diffused power, there's not enough power, consolidated power, to actually abuse and take away your rights. And I appreciate the Bill of Rights. I'm glad George Mason, the anti-federalists, won out on that. But the progressive statists deeply resented the machinery of the republic and the separation of powers because they thought it was a bug, not a feature of our Constitution, because it impeded progress. So what the progressives wanted to do at the turn of the 20th century was really leave behind the Constitution, the Constitutional Republic, transfer the real governance of this country to powerful unelected bureaucrats, build the edifice of the administrative state, which I call the American Leviathan, and allow all of those various powers, executive, legislative, and judicial, to be concentrated inside the administrative state in their minds to achieve greater progress for the American people. And what we end up with when you have consolidated power in the hands of relatively few imperfect people, you end up with authoritarianism. And I really think that's where we're at right now, Will, in which the administrative state over the last 100 years has gotten to the point of dominating the American people, ruling instead of actually serving and governing the American people as they should be to benefit them.
So I just want to underline something. You introduced a fascinating conversation that I don't want to belabor, but I do want to underline. You know, Ned, I went to law school, and learning about the Bill of Rights is pretty fascinating. If you really, because we adore the Bill of Rights. We revere the Bill of Rights. And many people listening would, of course, we talk about constantly, like, freedom of speech is the First Amendment, amendments being the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. But, you know, it's interesting when you're in law school and you're learning about the foundation of America, the Bill of Rights is a controversial moment because it flips on its head the understanding of America. See, the Bill of Rights lays out a list of things the government cannot do, rights that are protected from the government. And the original vision of the founders was, whoa, we don't do that, because the implication is if it's not listed here, they can do it.
Yes.
And the founders thought, hey, what we've done here is create a document in terms of the Constitution that lays out what the government can do. And the implication is if it's not listed here, you can't do it. And so a lot of people, we're well past this debate, obviously, Ned, but many people at the time thought that was a real bad moment for America because it flipped on its head the powers of the government. Are they limited by the Bill of Rights, or are they prescripted by the Constitution?
So this is, again, the debate between Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, George Mason. In fact, Alexander Hamilton adamantly fought for against an enumerated Bill of Rights because he thought there might be the mistake that somehow it was only the rights listed in a Bill of Rights that were actually guaranteed to the American people, when in fact, Alexander Hamilton was strongly of the opinion that there was no constitution long enough that could fully state all of the natural God-given rights that we as human beings have. And that was a huge debate, but in the end, to ratify the Constitution, they had to give that concession to the Anti-Federalists. In some ways, I'm very grateful for that. But it does kind of bring up the conversation, Will. There are a lot of totalitarian countries around the world that have their Bill of Rights, which have been annihilated by consolidated power of that totalitarian state. And I just want to put a fine point on this, again, showing the authoritarian nature of progressives. This summer, the SCOTUS overturned the SEC tribunals. I don't know if you were, everybody focused on the Chevron deference being overturned by SCOTUS. I think one of the other important decisions they made this summer was saying the SEC tribunal is actually unconstitutional. People go, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, inside the administrative state, there are a lot of tribunals for the various departments and agencies that are administrative law courts that actually 90% of the time with the SEC ruled in favor of the SEC. And the Supreme Court said that it's deeply unconstitutional over the course of how many decades that these administrative law tribunals have existed because it annihilated the Seventh Amendment right to trial by jury. And again, it just kind of puts that point on it. Even if you have listed out a right to trial by jury in the Seventh Amendment, when you consolidate power inside the administrative state, makes it kind of a joke. And I think this is the conversation that we have to have with the American people.
Well, I think for a moment there, I almost felt like, Ned, you were quoting or you were giving sort of like an improvisational class on Justice Antonin Scalia. Anybody, I don't have the clip to play for the audience right now, but it is an incredible clip. Scalia is sitting in front of Congress, along with, I believe, Justice Breyer, one of the furthest left justices on the Supreme Court, and they're having a conversation about what makes the American Constitution or the American experiment unique. What's the most important? I think the question he presents to the congressman is, what's the most important part of the Constitution? And he's like, you're tempted to say the First Amendment or whatever it may be. And he goes, it's not. And to your point, there are a lot of constitutions guaranteeing rights around this world. The Soviet Constitution lists more rights than the American Constitution. Right. He says, it's not these. Those are what are called parchment guarantees. You can write them down, but they mean nothing in practice. The only thing that protects our rights in practice is what Ned Ryun just said, the diffusion of powers, the separation of powers. The three branches of government, the separation from the Senate and the House, all making it so no one can consolidate power to then trample our rights. And, you know, by the way, while he's doing this, Breyer's looking on with admiration, which is pretty interesting and awesome to just see Breyer's face as Scalia geniusly lays this out. You should go watch it on YouTube, anyone watching or listening, because he's right. And to your point, the administrative state has become the workaround to the separation of power.
100%. And the amazing part to me, Will, is when you go back and actually research the original people that founded the progressive movement, Woodrow Wilson, Herbert Crowley, Robert La Follette, Theodore Roosevelt, John Burgess, all of these folks, they wanted to do away with that separation of powers. And I tell people what they've done with the administrative state, which resides mainly inside the Article 2 branch, the executive branch, They took the legislative power, they took judicial power, and they consolidated it all into that administrative state, which, again, primarily resides inside the executive branch. And then what you have is, again, judge, jury, executioner all in one branch, this consolidated power, in which the thing that really struck me in this researching for this book, Will, is they truly believe that power should be consolidated for progress. They felt that it could achieve the apotheosis of mankind, which is the deification of us. Herbert Crowley actually said, our views on democracy, our belief in democracy rise and fall on the perfectibility of mankind. And so they wanted to consolidate this power to advance mankind, to advance progress, because they thought somehow they could reach some state of perfection. But what you end up with, again, is that consolidated power. And I make the point in the book, Will, the founders got one thing very right when they put together our Constitution, and it was all based off the correct understanding of human nature. They believe that we are imperfect human beings in an imperfect world who have the ability to do great good but are incapable of sustained good. We have been given natural inherent rights by our Creator. So how do you create a government that protects those rights and takes none of them away at the same time as a realistic view of human nature? Never trust imperfect human nature with consolidated power. And this is what they came up with. I would argue the Constitution is one of the greatest political documents, if not the greatest political document ever written. And progressives looked at that document and said, we don't accept that premise on human nature. In fact, we think we actually have to consolidate power, and we trust human nature with this power because we think we'll reach perfectibility of mankind in the here and now.
Okay, just to illustrate what we were talking about with Ned and I when it comes to this document, here is Justice Antonin Scalia talking to Congress.
What do you think is the reason that America is such a free country? What is it in our Constitution that makes us what we are? And I guarantee you that the response I will get, and you will get this from almost any American, including the woman that he was talking to at the supermarket, the answer would be freedom of speech, freedom of the press, no unreasonable searches and seizures, no quartering of troops in hope, those marvelous provisions of the Bill of Rights. But then I tell them, if you think that a Bill of Rights is what sets us apart, you're crazy. Every banana republic in the world has a Bill of Rights. Every president for life has a Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights of the former evil empire, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, was much better than ours. I mean it literally. It was much better. We guarantee freedom of speech and of the press. Big deal. They guaranteed freedom of the speech, of the press, of street demonstrations and protests, and anyone who is caught trying to suppress criticism of the government will be called to account. Whoa, that is wonderful stuff. Of course, just words on paper. What our framers would have called a parchment guarantee. And the reason is that the real constitution of the Soviet Union, you think of the word constitution, it doesn't mean a bill, it means structure. Say a person has a sound constitution, has a sound structure. The real constitution of the Soviet Union, which is what our framers debated that whole summer in Philadelphia in 1787. They didn't talk about the Bill of Rights. That was an afterthought, wasn't it? That constitution of the Soviet Union did not prevent the centralization of power in one person or in one party. And when that happens, the game is...
Wow.
There's more to that
I've never seen that clip.
And you can continue to watch. Have you not, Ned? Oh, you've got to go see the clip because it goes on, and I almost feel guilty for ending it at that point. It's incredible. He goes on to talk about it more.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, I would like to say I very much fully 100% agree with him that the parchment barrier in this Bill of Rights is just it's a parchment barrier when in fact the real threat or the real protector of our freedom is either diffusion of power or consolidated power. That's what this comes down to. And that's what the founders knew.
Right.
That's why they constructed the machinery of I write about machinery of the Republic in my first book, Restoring Our Republic, in more detail, but that's what the progressives hated. And the progressives, listen, our founders did not trust human nature. They felt that government was a necessary evil, right? James Madison, we're no angels. So there has to be some form of government to restrain us from our worst impulses. At the same time, it's a necessary evil. not for progressives. Progressives truly believed that the state was the march of God on earth. They truly believed that the state was salvation. And it's kind of interesting. I was looking at some of Elon Musk's posts today on X. I still want to call it Twitter, but on X, in which he was talking about government spending and the growth of government. That's a feature, not a bug of the administrative state, Will, because the progressives viewed the state as salvation. And if you view the state as salvation, why would you ever want to limit it? Right? You would continue to expand until it comes into every aspect of your life to bring salvation. And then he brought up the question, well, why does it continue to grow? And why do we keep on spending? And why do we have this massive national debt? It's because you have to fund salvation. And that's why they started the IRS. That's why they started the income tax. That's why they're talking even now about 87,000 new IRS agents to hoover up those $600 of PayPal transactions. Because if there is to be salvation for society, the state must be funded. It is a fundamental philosophical view and belief system of progressive status that undergirds the entire administrative state.
I want to stick with the history for just one moment. So you focus in on the early 1900s, Woodrow Wilson,
Right.
Teddy Roosevelt, the rise of the progressive movement. We often talk and use the word progressive as though it's a modern invention. Like, even for people listening, they're like, when did liberals become progressives? Well, progressivism as an ideology has been around for more than a century. And I like that you have put yourself in the course of our conversation in their seat, because I think it's I think it is a get out of jail free card if you just always presume those who have a different vision than you are motivated by evil. They are motivated by what they believe is progress and the perfection of society. And you accurately point out, Ned, but the mistake for them is the inherent fallibility of the human condition.
Correct.
So you can't perfect society. You can't perfect men. And I think a great illustration of this, Ned, is that the same people, and how about this? Even if I grant them empathetic or beneficial motivations, right? They're still fallible. And what did they end up doing? In pursuit of progress, they wanted to sterilize black people. They wanted to euthanize people with mental disabilities. And eugenics, I am not being conspiratorial. This is history, folks. Like, it's out there.
I write about this.
They were tied to the eugenic movements. Go ahead, Ned.
No, I absolutely write about this. I write about the gospel of scientism that progressives believed through the power of the state and applied science, it leads to perfectibility. And it led to this pseudoscience of eugenics. They were deeply racist. Will, at the end of the day, they felt that the living organism of the state must reject anything that they viewed as parasites to the state, for the good of the state, right? The living organism. So they got infatuated with this idea of eugenics. And the one who actually got me thinking about it was Michael Crichton at the end of his book, State of Fear. And State of Fear is about the global warming hoax and the pseudoscience of that. And he wrote at the end of the book, we've dealt with this before, and he started writing about the progressives' infatuation with eugenics. And that really got me thinking, I've got to write about this in American Leviathan. But it also just leads to where we are today. They believe, and I talk about the gospel of scientism, Will, that they think that somehow science is a perfect art, when in fact it's really just the pursuit of greater knowledge, not the perfection of knowledge. Because again, I would ask a very basic question. How do you think a finite mind in an imperfect world can ever come up with perfection? Yet progressives think that scientism will actually be a perfect thing that will lead us to perfectibility. But they have been mistaken for so long, in so many different ways. They eventually got to the point, Will, where a lot of the American progressives realized if you go down this path of eugenics and trying to get to a pure blood race, and yes, they wrote about some of this, you're going to end up being deeply racist, deeply anti-Semitic, and you might actually, some of them talked about actually chloroforming some of the imperfect aspects of society. They realized we can't go that far. But guess who started taking up progressive race law and using it to frame out what they were going to do in the 1930s? The Nazis.
Yes.
The Nazis. This is the one thing that has staggered me. A guy wrote a book about Hitler's race laws, about how they used some of American laws to actually frame out what they were doing. What the guy that wrote the book didn't understand, those were progressive race laws based off eugenics that the Nazis then used to take it to its final and ultimate end, which of course led to the Holocaust.
And what this is, I want to complete this circle, because I would like to think that there might be some people listening and watching who don't share my political bias. Maybe for just even selfish reasons, as perhaps my own pursuit of persuasion. Like, maybe I can convince you, but the thing that you have to remember is those progressives didn't know they were evil. I mean, if we can agree and submit that eugenics is an evil concept, they didn't know that at the time. They weren't all sitting around, tapping their fingers together going, ha, ha, ha. They thought they were pursuing a moral good. But real quick, I want to say, the point is what Ned said about fallibility. The progressive today will excuse himself by saying, but I am. They were mistaken. That's ancient, or they were racist, and I'm not. But the point of fallibility is you don't know where you're failing right now. You don't know what moral failing you hold, that you will execute, that you will adopt in pursuit of all this power you want. You want the power to achieve your progress, but you don't know what you have inside you that is fallible.
They trust human nature far too much. They trust themselves far too much. And again, it is a far more, like the founders, far more realistic. And again, this is the amazing part to me. Again, the progressives trust themselves. The founders didn't trust themselves. Think about it. You're sitting in Philadelphia, 1787. You know that you are going to probably be the presidents, the vice presidents, representatives, senators, judges of this newly formed federal republic. It's in your best interest to create a form of government that would actually consolidate power into your hands. Guess what they did?
Yeah.
The exact opposite, because they didn't trust themselves, Will. So this is the thing that again, you just juxtapose the founders versus progressives. Founders didn't trust themselves. They are fully aware of their imperfect nature. Progressives were fully convinced of the goodness of their nature, and it became almost this religious dogma and a sense of righteousness that we're doing all of these things for the right reasons, and anyone who resists is an unbeliever, submit or else. It's a fascinating, when you juxtapose the worldviews behind a constitutional republic and an administrative state, and it really does boil down, how do you view human nature?
So, Ned, advancing a little bit in history and getting more specific beyond the philosophy that underpins it, I would have to guess FDR, big moment forward, big leap forward for the administrative state, the New Deal, a huge leap forward. And I'm going to ask you about that, but also, even though it's only one department under one branch of government, I just have to think that J. Edgar Hoover and the advent of the FBI is another great leap forward for America in growing the administrative state.
100%. I say that there are three major progressive statist waves. Obviously, Woodrow Wilson was the foundation of the administrative state, saw a massive burst of growth under FDR, then saw another burst of growth under LBJ. And over the course of time, what's also taking place is Congress, the Article I legislative branch, abdicating its role in actually governing and unconstitutionally subdelegating its legislative authority to the Article II branch where the administrative state resides. I fully agree with you on the FBI thing, Will. I actually make the argument that we survived, 120 years or so without an FBI. I think we need to re-examine and explore what we want to actually do in the future with the FBI, if it even exists in its current form. But I also discussed there's administrative state. We talk about this overarching branch of the administrative state. There's the deep state or surveillance state, of course, FBI and the CIA and the NSA and all those. There's the regulatory state, which I truly believe is not only impeding our progress, our economic freedom, it's also a national security issue because of all the regulation that is pushed offshore, vital manufacturing that is vital to our national security. And then there's the DMV state, the retired in place. I live in Northern Virginia. The District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia is obviously DMV. It's the retired in place. And the administrative state is also a patronage system for Democrats to, quite frankly, launder taxpayer money into Democrat contributions. I mean, this is the one thing I discussed a little bit where most of these people sitting inside the administrative state for self-preservation are firmly behind the Democratic Party because they view the patronage system of the administrative state that is self-preservation. And so when Donald Trump wins, and I say this with great hope that he wins November 5th, day one, he needs to declare war against the administrative state because of self-preservation, not only for our republic, but also for two-party rule. If you do not figure out how to break apart the administrative state, I think we are headed down that path of one-party rule a lot sooner than we would like to actually think about. And I make the point in the end too, Will. He talks about draining the swamp. Great theme, great, theme for his campaign. I think he's finally realized that the foundation of the swamp is the administrative state. So in the end, I say, simple to say this, albeit monumental in application, you break the state, you drain the swamp, and you got a shot at restoring the republic.
So that touch on history is enough to go get American Leviathan. I have one last question for Ned Ryun, but you talking about 3 waves of the growth of administrative state is exactly what I would have guessed, by the way, on the big waves. LBJ, FDR, and Woodrow Wilson, there is your growth of the modern American deep state. I bring up the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover because of the power they ended up being able to wield over the presidency for half a century. He had something on everyone, giving him, I need to read more about Hoover. I need to read more Hoover books, but one of the most powerful figures in American history.
Total abuse of power. No, but funny you bring that up, the FBI. I bring up Watergate. I bring up Watergate and Russiagate, in which I feel that they are different sides of the same coin, in which Richard Nixon, in his reelection of 1972, said, I'm going to go after the administrative state. I'm going to deconstruct it. Wins overwhelmingly, Will, in the Electoral College. I don't think people realize how definitively he won in 1972, with a major premise of his campaign being, I'm going to deconstruct the administrative state. And then a high-ranking official in the FBI, using 2 corporate propagandists at the Washington Post, feeding them information to help bring down the duly elected president they think is a threat, an existential threat to the administrative state. Now, some people listening to that might be thinking I'm talking about Russiagate and Donald Trump. No, I'm actually talking about Richard Nixon and Watergate. We have gotten to the point where these unelected, powerful bureaucrats feel that they are the ones who decide. They're the ones who are supposed to be governing this country. And anybody who presents a threat to them needs to be dealt with. And I told Trump this a couple summers ago when we were sitting together. I said, you know what your greatest sin was in the eyes of the administrative state and the people in D.C.? He goes, I don't know. What's your theory, Ned? They deeply resent that you think you decide, which is crazy when you think about this, Will, in a government of, by, and for the people, in which all power flows from the people to their duly elected representatives. That's how it's supposed to work in a constitutional republic. Donald Trump showed up and said, I'm the duly elected president of the United States. I'm the one who decides both foreign and domestic policy. And the administrative state actor said, no, we don't think so. We think we're the ones to decide. And I told him, honestly, sir, over the last few decades, they're correct, because I truly believe we're living in an administrative state, not a republic. And the question is, will the American people wake up and realize and have to have the conversation with themselves and go, what do we want for the future? Do we want to restore a republic, or we can continue slouching down this path toward full and complete statism?
Okay, last question, Ned. Do you have a note of optimism? Because I'm going to be honest. On this topic, like you saying, can you restore a republic and deconstruct administrative state? I'm going to be honest with you. I have trouble seeing optimism on that mission statement. It feels a little bit like the horse is out of the barn. And I don't know how about this, Ned? I don't have a historical example, either in American history or across the world, where it's been done. Outside of bloodshed, to be quite honest, in the mechanism of revolution. I don't see it done where like a Donald Trump can come in and go, we're reducing a significant percentage of the employment jobs within the administrative state of Washington, D.C.
Yep.
Give me the model. Can this actually be done?
So you're almost quoting in some ways Ronald Reagan without knowing it, because he was wanting to go. The last 2 presidents that rejected the premise of the administrative state were Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan before Donald Trump. And Reagan told his staff, I have studied bureaucratic statism, and no country that has gone this far down the path of bureaucratic statism has ever come back from it. And he's saying this in the 1980s, Will. So he understood the battle that was at how hard it was going to be. I will say this, the reason I have optimism is the administrative state resides inside the executive branch. If you have a powerful executive, President Donald J. Trump, who actually has the political courage and has the right personnel decisions placed in the various departments and agencies, you have a shot. And you have a Supreme Court that has decided with cases this summer, no more Chevron deference, no more private administrative law tribunals with the SEC and other departments and agencies. You have a shot. And like I said, if you have the political courage to do it and the right personnel, you have a shot, but there are no guarantees because you're right. We have been experiencing this for over 110 years, if you want to think about when it really started. That's very hard to undo, but I will leave you with this. Woodrow Wilson, one of the founders of the progressive movement administrative state, said, "We are not bound to adhere to the ideals of the founders and the writers of the Declaration of Independence. We are free to make or unmake government as we so choose." I would challenge the American people. They thought that. We also can think that. We can unmake the administrative state if the American people will reject any legitimacy of the administrative state and say, we want to restore a republic.
What a fascinating book. American Leviathan by Ned Ryun. Go check it out. It's out now. What a fascinating conversation today here on the Will Cain Show. Thank you, Ned, so much.
Thanks, Will.
All right. We've got a lot of comments coming in. I can see them right now. A lot on YouTube, Facebook as well. Let's get to some of your comments. Plus, I'm going to ask you, let's pivot to a little bit. Celebrity endorsement. Any that has, be real power over you. And let's rebuild the Pac-12. Next on the Will Cain Show.
I'm Dana Perino. This week on Perino on Politics, it's a tied race and someone or something has to break it. This week, I'm joined by former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to discuss what the candidates need to do in order to change the standings of this tight race. Right now, Trump looks to be in the lead, both nationally and in the Electoral College. Can he keep that lead? We shall see. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
Streaming now on Fox Nation, a new season of The Real Hatfields and McCoys, Forever Feuding.
We're a moonshine family.
The longest-running American drama.
Hatfields, I'm coming after the moonshine business.
Returns to Fox Nation.
My daddy taught me if somebody's hurting until you kill them.
That's a family tradition.
With all new episodes.
Show them what the Hatfields might know.
We have to shut them down.
Never let McCoy outdo me. We'll see what happens at the end.
The Real Hatfields and McCoys, Forever Feuding. A new season streaming now on Fox Nation. Sign up at foxnation.com.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown. Every Monday and Friday, Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you. Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. Any more impact? And who won or lost the debate in the race for president? It's the Will Cain Show. Streaming live, Fox News YouTube and Fox News Facebook. On demand, Will Cain Show YouTube. Hit subscribe. Streaming on radio stations across this great country, including KRLD in Dallas, Texas, Las Vegas, upstate New York, San Francisco, Houston. And all of you listening can also subscribe to the Will Cain Show on Spotify or on Apple. Hang out with us anytime. You can also jump into the comments. We ask, with Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris, we can bring in the guys in New York as well, is there anybody that has this kind of power over you? By the way, Tinfoil Pat, my producer, this was his idea. And I'm going to give him a chance to speak on the microphone, trepidatiously. Who is the person in our control room in New York that every time the camera comes on goes bailing out of the control room?
Mike.
I can see it in the background, and somebody's in the witness protection program
I need to
and doesn't
get
want
out
to
of
be
here.
on camera.
Well, I am training a couple
can
people
see it.
because I'm getting married next week, so I got to train some people to do my job.
I know it, man. I know it. Here we go.
But that's what's happening.
Well,
They're just
they're going to be on
bailing out.
camera. They're going to be on camera when they fill in for you two-a-days. B, congratulations. We need a full report, wedding and honeymoon. Tinfoil, you asked us with some self-awareness, like you're acknowledging. There is some celebrity that has power and influence over your conspiracies. Who is that, Tinfoil?
Well, dead, it would be Norm Macdonald. I would definitely think about a lot about what he has to say, even if he went with Harris. So, but then there's also one of my favorite movie stars, Mel Gibson. I don't know. I feel like we kind of are simpatico in a lot of ways. Not in
You're
the bad ways.
simpatico with Mel Gibson?
Not in the bad ways.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, you've already been clipped like very fine people.
I already clipped
that's
it.
A very fine people.
I already
You were too
clipped
late.
it. Yep.
You were too late.
It's going on social
Now we have
media.
the clip. We are Mel Gibson and I are simpatico. And then it doesn't matter that a sentence or two later you said, not in the bad ways. It's over for you. We now have your moment, your very fine people moment, Tim Pat. I don't know. I don't know that I have anybody. I really don't. I think when I was James's age and he says Tom Brady, I might have had a name. I don't know who it would have been.
Aikman?
To this day. No, I never outsourced any type of influence to sports figures. I really didn't.
Yeah.
If you were picking a sports figure that I loved the most, it was probably Dirk Nowitzki. And I don't want to know where Dirk is on politics. I don't want to know. I have some feelings that he doesn't listen to the Will Cain Show.
Do you think he's really passionate about Eastern European politics?
Oh, Dirk on what's going on in Germany would be fascinating.
Fascinating.
What if we offered Dirk the opportunity to not give us a single opinion on American politics, but can we break down migration in Europe? Can we break down Germany? I would love that. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm into Zach Bryan right now, but I don't presume that we agree and don't want to know. So
I don't think
care.
you do. I don't think you agree. Just going to throw that out there.
What about Mac Brown back in the day?
No.
No?
No. Mm-mm. No. I don't have this person, but jump into the comment section. Let me know who I might be forgetting. Speaking of that, the Hands-On Gang says, I went to a Taylor Swift YouTube video and told all of her listeners not to follow her politically. Well, doing God's work there, gang.
Hope they saw.
Good job. Wonder how many people you persuaded over there in the comment section on the Taylor Swift YouTube video. Unknown Valor said, this is interesting. Celebrities have impact. Trump is a celebrity and businessman. Musk is in the same boat. Huh. Okay, fair point. Both very influential. And obviously Trump for his own sake and running for presidency, but Musk not, and he has a lot of swing right now. What's up, two-a-days?
Speaking of Tom Brady, too, do you think he would ever go into office? I feel like he would have a lot of sway over people if he ran for some sort of office. Do you see that ever happening?
No.
Really?
No. He's too dedicated. I think he is too dedicated to being I think Tom Brady is okay being not liked, but not as a 50-50 proposition.
Got it. Yeah.
I'm just guessing here. I think Tom Brady's wants to be in a 70-30, 80-20 type of situation, you know? Because once you've tasted that, that's hard to let go. And he's tasted that. He's tasted 90-10 proposition as far as like him versus hate him. Here's what's more interesting than Tom Brady. Matthew McConaughey. Will he really run for governor of Texas? Rachel Campos-Duffy thinks he'll run for governor of Texas. But he's got the same issue. And I've been around people in sports who've tasted the forbidden chalice of likability. And once you have that, you don't keep that when you go to politics. You're playing for a 55% proposition. You know what I mean? So does Matthew McConaughey trade, what, a 90% favorability rating for 55? I don't think so.
He's not. He's very hard to be unlikable, though, even if you don't agree with his politics. You're like, I don't agree with what he's saying, but I still like that guy. That's how he would be.
Dude, the minute you put a D beside your name and you run on a ballot, you become a target, and people will find all of the least likable things about you and highlight them. Nobody cares about. I'm sure there are unlikable things about McConaughey. There are about all of us.
All right,
and politics is about shining a light.
Green light.
Trump had to have been 70-30 or 80-20 like before 2010, right?
Might have been. Yes.
The Apprentice, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. WWE, sports, The View, late night television.
Yep.
Trump was probably 70-30, 80-20 before he ran for president. Deborah A. says on YouTube, Taylor Swift doesn't have to worry about food or inflation. Her opinion doesn't matter. Cheeky Chops says, Will is a savage on Fox and Friends. Is that your burner, James?
No.
James, is that a burner for you? Cheeky Chops?
Well, I had to make a new burner because
No, that's James's brother's burner.
So many burners.
Paul Fiesel says, when did Texas and Florida not become toss-up? They were in 2020 and 2016. I don't remember Texas ever being a toss-up. I remember people pretending it's going to be a toss-up.
Yeah.
I don't remember it ever really being a toss-up. And Florida is to the point, is a recent move. You're right. It was the swing state. Honestly, before DeSantis.
Especially Miami-Dade.
DeSantis won it the first time by like 2 points, and then the second time by, 18?
DeSantis won it by a few 100,000 votes. It came really close, and then we had a large influx of Republicans coming in here. I mean, that's why all of our property taxes and stuff are going through the roof. But yeah, I mean, it's now
are they
heavily
eating cats?
Republican. No, they're mostly northerners.
All the people moving from northeast.
They're eating Crocs.
Yeah, corned beef.
Oh. Yeah, coming in, raising your rents, eating the pets.
That is true.
People
That
from
raising
New
rent
Jersey.
thing is true.
Danny on YouTube says, why worry about Taylor Swift? A majority of her fans are, 1, spread across the globe, and 2, in the under 18 age bracket. I'm not sure that's true.
That's not.
The Swiftie, what do you think prime Swiftie is right now? Is she 26?
She's 34.
100%.
No.
Taylor Swift is 34 years old. She's 2 years younger than me. Like, my fiance loves
Prime
Taylor Swift.
Swiftie
All
is
her
34.
friends, we grew up with her. Like, that era grew up with her. The
As
younger millennials.
As a dude too, like you don't say anything bad about her around girls.
Hell,
you don't.
no.
There's no point.
I've made that mistake before.
Prime Swiftie is 34.
Yes.
Wow.
I would say 30
That's
as a
voting
median.
woman.
30 to 34.
Yeah.
Like that younger millennial.
Yep.
But so that's prime. Is there an older Swiftie? Is there a 40-year-old Swiftie?
I think there's some.
I don't mean. I mean, like, if you bell curved out Taylor Swift's audience, does it sweep in early 40s? Because I will say this, Patrick, you can probably speak to this better because you have daughters.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely 12, 13, 14-year-old Swifties today, like big time,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So she's got easily a 20-year audience bracket there, and maybe more if they go older than 34. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Dan.
across generations.
I just looked it up. Well, 45% of Swift's U.S. fans are millennials, like the 34-year-old herself. 21% are Gen X, and 25% are boomers, according to a 2023 survey.
Well, that doesn't even bring in like Alpha, which I would assume is huge. Like
Exactly.
Gen Alpha, which is
So middle-aged Swifties are there.
Huh.
She came on the scene in
Right.
2007 with "You Belong with Me" and all those songs.
Look at
So
you.
She's been there for a
Look
while.
at you,
That's
fan of Taylor Swift.
17 years now. So.
Cecilia Black says on YouTube, no celeb owns my mind. They are politically illiterate. That was always my thing on ESPN. Like, should athletes be able to talk about politics? Yeah, of course. You can talk about whatever you want. But, like, my requirement is know what you're talking about. I mean, don't be – like, I don't have a problem that LeBron James has an opinion about politics because he's a basketball player. I have a problem with LeBron James having an opinion about politics because he is illiterate when it comes to politics. And that's a fact. Like, and if someone wants to challenge me on that, sure, okay, let's do a long-form interview about politics. LeBron, you're invited on. We could even talk about page 4 of the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Not page 5.
Truth Nation Uncensored said 99% of Taylor Swift songs are about choosing the wrong person.
I like that one.
I got that halfway through reading it. It's
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
Choosing the wrong boyfriend, now she chooses Kamala person. Stefan Lumpkin says, did the debate matter when they said Trump won? And then Rigo Hernandez says on YouTube, the Will Cain Show, only see one way. He need to open his eye and look both ways.
I was going to send
Here's
that
a
one, but
question in
Patrick said that
journalism.
one.
Here's a question in journalism. This is a legit question. Do you clean up someone's quote? Right? Like, I think that's an open debate. Like, say you work for the AP and somebody says something and they say it in super bad grammar. Do you clean it up or do you print it exactly as they say it?
It depends if you agree with them or not.
I think that's what their rule is. I do.
Yeah.
I think that's their rule. But you should definitely not clean it up. You should definitely not clean it up.
I love
you
the
need
sick.
to do it the way they say.
You do though. I notice you do with our fans in the live chat sometimes.
Well, I think fans are different than quoting a politician.
True.
But Rigo here got the direct quote. The Will Cain Show only see one way. He need to open his eye and look both ways.
One eye. We were talking about your one eye earlier, so.
Everything is singular. Only see one way. He need to open his eye. All right, Rigo.
Like it.
I'm trying, Rigo. Yeah, I'm trying to see things as many ways as possible, to your point. Okay, by the way, I want to do this really quickly. We're going to dive into this in more depth and detail on the Will Cain Show, Cain on Sports episode, which is our Friday episode of the Will Cain Show. You need to subscribe on Spotify or Apple to get that. But today, the Pac-12 invited Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, and San Diego State to join Oregon State and Washington State in a new reformed Pac-12. And it got me thinking, are those if you're rating the country, are those the biggest brands? Like the Pac-12 is the Pac-12. They're a Power 5 conference, I guess. And they need big brands. And big brands are defined by, I think, television ratings, recognizability, quality of program. And I went and I looked at the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, the Mountain West, the Sun Belt Conference, the American Athletic Conference. And I was like, what are the biggest brands they could have picked from? And you need some, I don't like what the ACC is doing where they've got Stanford and Cal in there. You need some geographic cohesiveness. And I was like, here's the big brands they left out. I'm sorry, big relatively. Wyoming, UNLV, Hawaii. And honestly, even San Jose State, I was like, is San Jose State smaller than Fresno State? Just got me thinking about these schools. And if it were me, if you're the flagship of a state, even a small state, I think you have a bigger brand like Wyoming. It's a tiny state. But hey, I don't know who's sitting behind you, Dan. I can't see that person's face. All right, there's the four of us on the Will Cain Show. There's a person sitting behind you. Okay? I want you to turn around, and I want you to ask that person, it's the Wyoming what?
What's the name of the Wyoming college football team?
Doesn't know.
Okay. All right. Failure. What color are they? Can you tell me the color of their uniforms?
Doesn't know. See?
Well, he's not going to know Fresno. Okay, this will be the test. Now ask him Fresno State.
Fresno State.
If he knows it, I'll blow my mind.
Doesn't know. Doesn't know.
Okay.
It's a little too
Wyoming
niche.
Cowboys. That feels like everybody knows it, and they're brown
It is
and
big,
yellow, right? Everybody.
Didn't you live in Wyoming though?
Me? No, Montana.
I think
Montana.
Did they have a big quarterback come out a couple years ago?
Josh Allen.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
That's probably the only reason I would know it.
Starting
Really?
my fantasy team.
They have an awesome logo.
I love the logo. I was just going to say.
And no one has those colors. They're unique. Like no one else is doing brown and yellow. But is brown. Padres, Cleveland Browns, Wyoming. Is that, have we just concluded the list of teams that use the color brown?
Bowling Green.
Okay.
I feel like there's a hockey
I really
team.
like brown.
Wasn't there Memphis?
I can't think
for
of a
while?
hockey team. No, they're blue and black and silver. You looking it up, Dan?
Yeah.
I think brown's underrated on a uniform.
Well, I personally think so in the NHL, you have the Bruins and the Penguins, and the Bruins initially were brown and gold, or brown and yellow. And I feel like they should go with like a really dark, deep brown to kind of differentiate themselves, because it is.
But to my
not
overall debate,
utilized.
well, 2 days is looking that up. San Diego State's a pretty big brand. I think. I don't know its reputation in California in terms of is it a commuter school? Is it a big party? It's a party school. I do know that. Pretty big brand. I feel like Colorado State's a decent sized brand. I think most people know they're the Rams. I think. By the way, unique colors there, green and gold.
Mm-hmm.
Boise State, because they've been good now as a group of 5 school for, what are we going on, 20 years, has arrived as a decent sized brand. UNLV, I still think of Stacey Augmon and Larry Johnson, and I think they have a brand. And then Wyoming. I don't know. If you're building the Pac-12, what they're suggesting is they've taken these teams and they're going to wait. And they're going to wait for the ACC and see who falls out. They're not going to keep rating Group of Five. They're going to see, as this falls apart, what other big group, Power Five schools fall out, possibly of your conference, Patrick, the ACC.
We're not going there.
Bowling Green State is brown. Lehigh University is brown. And Valparaiso University is brown.
Is that how you say that?
Valparaiso?
I would have said Valparaiso.
Valparaiso. That's correct. You're correct. I am wrong.
Brown University.
You threw an extra A in there.
I did. I tried to sound smart like I knew what I was talking about.
Is Brown University brown? For real? Do they wear brown at Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Mostly. Right?
I'd be really disappointed if they didn't.
I think they got some red in there.
Yeah. They're,
okay.
yeah.
More teams.
They look like the Cleveland Browns uniforms.
Oh, we forgot one. The San Antonio Rough Riders. Remember them?
Sure.
Football.
Yep.
What league was that in? What was that in?
XFL? No.
XFL?
Or the Canadian League.
More brown. I love the conversation about what schools are what out there, like Florida State versus Florida, San Diego State. We're going to break a lot of that down tomorrow on the Canon Sports Edition with Danny Cannell, former Florida State quarterback. So make sure you subscribe on Spotify or on Apple. That's going to do it for us today here on The Will Cain Show. We will see you again next time.